All right, everyone, let's now move on to another exciting conversation. Our third panel discussion. In this session, we will delve into the power of design and explore how design goes beyond aesthetics and has emerged as a powerful force to drive innovation and social change. The discussion will explore further groundbreaking possibilities while highlighting UTokyo's pioneering initiatives and the development of a new approach to design education. We are fortunate to have three distinguished international speakers joining us today from London, Zurich, and Tokyo. Miles Pennington, Professor of Design-Led Innovation at the University of Tokyo, will be our moderator. Professor Pennington, please.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, so thank you for the invitation and thank you everyone for joining. So this session is called Design Unbound, Fusions, Frontiers, and Boundary Breaking in Design, and super lucky to have three boundary-breaking design thinkers here today. I'm going to introduce them in a moment, but maybe I'll introduce myself first. So my name is Miles Pennington, and I work in a design lab here at the University of Tokyo called the DLX Design Lab. And we are embedded deep inside a science, technology, and research institute. So we are, every day we feel like a satellite of design, and we're constantly thinking about where design is at the moment and where it goes in the future. So in today's panel session, that's what we wanted to discuss with some other people, like where are the frontiers of design and where do we see it expanding and evolving in the coming years. So in a moment, we're going to introduce the speakers, and they'll let you know their backgrounds and their particular perspectives on design. But I am a teacher, and this is a kind of class, so I need to do at least one quiz before we get into the conversation. And the subject of the quiz is lemon squeezers. But it's not really about lemon squeezers. What I want to know is what your impression of design is. So I've brought a selection of lemon squeezers, and I show these to my students, and I want to know which one you think is the most designed. Okay, which one is the most designed? You're going to need to put your hand up on this, okay, so stretch your arms and get ready. The first is this. It's from the 1990s. It's called the Juicy Salif, and it's from the company Alessi. So there you go, look at that. That's A. The next item is a real classic. Your grandparents would probably recognize this. It's glass. I don't know what it's called. It is a lemon squeezer, right? Okay. And then the third one is from a company called OXO that makes a range of kitchenware that's easy to use. So this is OXO's citrus squeezer. You can see it working there. So we have three lemon squeezers, A, B, and C. I would like to know from you, who thinks the most designed is, first off, A? If you put your hand up in the air, if you think A is the first. It's a bit difficult to see. There's a few votes for A. Okay, how about B? Put your hand up if you think B is the most. Interesting. And finally, C. All right, it's kind of even. What if you think all of them are designed? Put your hand up in the air. All right. All right. It wasn't a trick question, and I have to say you're probably a very well-informed audience, because when you work in design or educate in design, you tend to come across a perception of design that's quite limited, and it's around the aesthetics of a product or service being the way something is designed. So very often we get this one, this very beautiful sculptural form. I love it, but I've never squeezed a lemon with it. And we face that a lot, but we all know, and I think judging by your votes, you all know too that design is much broader than that. So this is what we want to talk about today, and I'm very lucky that we have three exceptional thinkers here, and I'm going to introduce them and ask them what's their unique perspective on design. And each one of them, I think, has a very different angle. The first is Professor Vali LALIOTI, who is Professor of XR and Robotics from the Creative Computing Institute at the University of Arts, London. And she's come over especially for this conference. Thank you very much for coming. Vali, what is your kind of opinion, your personal perspective on design?
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, what an amazing 2 days we have so far. I've learned a lot from all the speakers. So design, what is design for me? Maybe I should tell you that I came to design a bit later, and I came to design through science. So you see, in the country I grew up, Greece, at that time, design was not a university subject. It was understood as graphic design or maybe interior design. And I loved solving problems. So I studied maths. And then later on, I got a PhD in computer science. So it was a lot later, after I've been a professor of virtual reality, bringing aesthetics into technology, and working with companies to explore innovation, technological innovation, when I decided it was time to see how design solved problems. And I went to the Royal College of Art, and I did a master's in design. So the vision that I have for design, or the definition, if you like, for design, comes from science. So I feel, or I define design as a way of seeing and of thinking, a different way of thinking around problems. So in a way, that's very similar to maths. It's a language, it's a way of exploring problems through a different language that opens up different opportunities. And very similar to what President Fuji said yesterday, it's also a process, it's a method of not just only thinking about problems, but in fact solving problems. And I find that this is very similar to an algorithm, like computer scientists. It's a program that solves problems. So design for me is thinking and a process, a structure to solve problems.
It's very interesting, your background from science into design. I have a question which we'll come onto later, whether that was an educational choice you had to make earlier or whether it was just a natural evolution. But thank you very much, Vali. So next we have Shiho Fukuhara, who is a renowned artist, and she has an exhibition coming up. I hope you get to see it, because she's phenomenal. And she also has a job. Well, being an artist is a job, I don't mean it in that way. She is the technology lead, technology integration lead at Google here in Tokyo. So there's an amazing mixture of art generation and corporate life. So Shiho, we're really interested to see how design is for you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, especially in Yasuda Kodo. In 1969, there was a discussion between Yukio Mishima and students to create revolutions. And so talking about design and talking about unbounding design here is so meaningful. And yeah, there's a film, so I will send you the link afterwards. So yeah, what's design? It's a very good question. It's difficult enough as what is art too. It's difficult to define as just one word. But actually I also have similar to opposite actually to your approach. I came from fine art, and then I chose to study computer-related design. Then later on interaction design, then science. So very interesting connecting dots approaches, but find that design is about exploring and finding and celebrating differences. And that creates the empathy economy. And so we just have to not just to seeing that differences, but how to evaluate and how to make it valuable, meaningful, in the differences between people and culture, way of thinking, and also forms, everything. So that's why it's very difficult for me to just to say that is the design. As an artist and also working at creative technology, I always pose the questions that what if this works that way, and the most important, what it is. So not just ending about what if, but you have to create and make it in everyday context. So that is design for me. So.
Thank you very much, Shiho. I think we'll definitely come back to this juxtaposition of you being an artist and also heavily involved in a big corporation, and they must be complementary and contradictory environment. So well, let's talk about that a little bit later, but just to introduce our third panelist today, Lukas FRANCIZZKIEWICZ is from the Zurich University of the Arts, which is Zurich's largest art university. Lukas and I worked together. I feel honored to be saying I worked together with Lukas in London. Lukas, for me, is the new generation of design educator. So he's been a designer for several years and has now joined higher education and has created an entirely new industrial design program. So thank you very much for coming, Lukas. I think you're probably molding the course from your own perspective of what you think is important in design in the future. So it would be an honor to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor from our side, and I'm actually trained as an industrial designer, so in a quite traditional way, like designing products and objects and the stuff around us. And then made a small detour, I would say, coming to the RCA in London, looking into designing interactions also from a more critical perspective. And now I started this new program at the Zurich University of the Arts, a master's program in industrial design, and I actually reflected a lot back on my own design education, on my own experience, but also my professional career, where I spent kind of actually most of my career between London and Tokyo working in design, technology, and innovation. And the way I think about, I talk about, and I most importantly use design is really to do both, to solve problems, but also to ask questions. So all the products and all the objects and services and systems around us are actually are influenced by the worldviews, by the values, by the preconceptions we have as a society. So it becomes really important, like to be aware of that, but also to question those, like the material aspects, the material culture aspects.
Thank you very much. So later we're definitely going to come across the subject of redesigning education itself. So I'd like to hear, and we'll ask a few questions about the new program. So that gives you a flavor of the types of fusions we have in the panel. Maybe I'd like to dig a little bit deeper. So the hints that we've heard already are that design is beyond aesthetics. It's beyond just simply products and services. It's been very successful as a discipline and as an approach to create economic and social benefit. But we're, I think, all interested in how design can move beyond that normal way of working, that normal production. For an example, where I work at DLX, we engage with science and technology research, which is very unusual. Design normally starts with a human need. Where we start is with some new knowledge that a researcher has created. It's an incredibly exciting place to work, I think, because research is a kind of like a treasure. So we call what we do treasure hunting. So we go into researchers' labs and try to collaborate and find projects to do that uses their research to create new value through design. And very often our projects are not creating new product or service ideas. Sometimes they do, but an example I want to give is a project we call Omni, which is a project all about getting people involved in ocean research. So in this project, one of the phases of the project was about microplastics. So I'm sure you're all aware of the problem, microplastics, particularly in the marine environment. So we would design workshops and experiences to teach people about that problem. We'd bring scientists down to seaside communities so they could hear the real research that's happening inside the university. So also trying to close the gap between university and the general public. And then we'd design devices that sucked water from the sea or dug up sand and allowed people quickly to see the problem with their own eyes. So this is about information and inspiration and ultimately about behavior change. So what are the output of our design? Ultimately, the success is behavior change. So completely different from creating a new product or service idea. That's an example of how we work, and it would be great if we could share some other examples, and I think all three of the panelists have worked in different ways. The marine environment and natural environments are quite popular with the frontier of design at the moment, and I know Shiho has worked a lot in bio projects, so using biology either for design or for artistic purposes. So maybe, Shiho, we could pass the baton to you first and tell us a little bit about why is it, what's an example of an interesting project or why people are drawn to bio investigations.
Thanks, Miles. When we look at nature, we realize that there are so many design by nature already, which is not human, only made. So when we look at design, I think of human intention, but also non-human intention. So when we look at the bacteria, how they behave, or how DNA is designed to have so much information in a very efficient way and robust way, that's just inspiring for us. And we have to understand, learn from that. So that is what we always fascinate about biology as a medium to learn the non-human perspective.
Is there a particular project that you think is a great example of designers and biology working together that you could maybe tell us about?
There are a few projects that comes to my mind, but the great example is that I don't know the name in English, but it's about the goldfish, and they understand that how goldfish was being designed by human. And if you uncrossing the goldfish, that becomes back to the original fish, so the ancestor. I don't know in English, it's called funa, and carp, I think. So then there was 5 years happened, and we could see that it's going back to close to the carp. And that is also that how we design the nature, but the goldfish is very fragile and a very sensitive animal, but also beautiful and has long history between human and so that's an interesting project for me.
What do you think design brings to that kind of investigation? Because it could be an animal biologist or a researcher does that kind of investigation from a very scientific perspective. So by collaborating between science and design over that topic, what do you think the strength of that combination is?
We compromise also each other because science and design is also coming from imaginations, how this is made, maybe this way, etc. And we try to understand how our world is built. So that is very similar approaches, but very different from different angles. That's how I see, because science is about have to find one alternative answer and has to be repetitive also. So it's not just accidentally I made this result. The science has to be written down and shared. And that is very interesting for me because it's very open source mindset. We say that you're standing on the giant's shoulder, and you see different landscape afterwards. You learn from people's past knowledges, and that is science.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we get very excited to work together.
Thank you. Vali, do you have any examples to throw in here?
Yes, thank you, Miles. A lot of examples come to mind because I love connecting design and science in what I do. So maybe I'll take an example from my own research in robotics, which is about a topic we've heard a lot this morning, is about aging. And a global issue that we have across our countries, Japan, the UK, Europe, the global north. So obviously, robotics could bring some solutions to that, but it's quite important how we design to bring robotics into solutions in healthy aging. And for me, the real power of design is the ability to do co-design. We've heard that from one of the speakers in the previous panels. Co-design is empowering the people that are affected by the problem to actually design solutions for that problem together, of course, with designers and experts. And to me, it's very important that I design the robot that will look after me. I'm running out of time. And I think it's not because I'm a professor of robotics that I want to do that. It's because I'm going to be affected by it. So maybe I have an idea or two about how that might work. So that's why I think the power of design to work with the people that are affected is very important. The other example maybe I will bring briefly comes from the art. I think I find a lot of inspiration. I work in the University of the Arts London, so I find a lot of inspiration coming from the arts and design. One example is puppeteering. So when we're looking at moving robots, designing the movement of robots, we're looking at how puppeteers and puppets are moving, because that engages the audience. It's an art that makes puppets more engaging. So we design robots with that inspiration so that they can move people. And I mean both literally, so in care, but also metaphorically in terms of companionship, in terms of being with robots in ways that support our well-being. I think I'll stop
very interesting.
there.
Especially that the kind of drawing inspiration from cultural activities or heritage is like a very unusual approach, I think, especially in robotics, maybe. So.
Yes, thank you very much, Miles. Indeed, and it's important to acknowledge that you cannot just build one robot for all our cultures. So it's quite important to be able to address cultural issues between our countries. And Japan does robotics wonderfully when it comes to aging populations. And I'm not talking just about humanoids, but all kinds of different robotics. But it's not easy to just take what we're doing here into a different culture. There is some adjustment that needs to happen, and design is, again, very helpful to that, and art and heritage.
I have a follow-on question, which is you're a professor of robotics, and you came from computer science into design. But are your students coming from very diverse backgrounds? You know, people without the maths, without the engineering or the technology understanding. Do they equally, get involved in such technical projects? And what do they bring that's equally valuable to maybe more technically minded students that are coming in?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Thank you. Maybe I should say that I ran the program of the Creative Computing Institute, and we introduced science into an arts university. So in a way, doing the opposite of what you have done. So I introduced computer science, data science, and AI, creative robotics in an arts setup university. And it's been very rewarding because precisely we saw students that maybe not traditionally go and do robotics in an engineering department to come to us and be equally, experienced in terms of the technology, but also understanding the design process and being able to be more helpful in across projects. So maybe I'll talk about it maybe later as well, but I think for this question that you asked me, it's very important to celebrate the fact that we have a bigger diversity than traditional STEM topics.
Yeah.
I think specifically for me, a woman in technology, we have a high percentage of women in our creative robotics and computer science and data science and AI degrees, and I celebrate that. And it's not just gender, it's economic backgrounds and ethnicities and ability. So it's a very inclusive way of...
There's something unique about the creative computing combination in an art school that I think attracts that. So maybe you have some hints for us later. But Lukas, I know you've been mulling and creating an entirely new design program. So perhaps you have some examples of how design is kind of moving into new territories, or you have opinion on that. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think I'm really glad, Shiho and Vali, you mentioned two really crucial points, and one of this is kind of modern human perspectives, and the other one is co-creation, because I think they are absolutely crucial. Like, they are the topics of our time, because design has predominantly dealt with the human through human-centered design and convenience-driven design, and some of the problems we face at the moment are at a completely different scale, right? So we are dealing with sustainability issues, with social injustice, and they can't be tackled at this scale. So I think to a certain extent we have to kind of open up our perspectives as well, go beyond the convenience-driven human, not designing for convenience, but designing for impact as well. And that's what we're trying to promote with our students and in our program as well. So really try to design meaningful and sensible solutions through design by both asking these questions, opening up new perspectives, and then bringing them down to a point and actually proposing something that has transformative potential. So one of our students, Kaya, for example, she is working on with bacteria on changing essentially the textile industry, how the textile industry might work, on creating these micro factories or micro machines to spin a yarn out of bacteria, to really not create a slightly different product, but to inspire a new system. So I think that's really our role as designers, to not just kind of design for industry, especially in an educational context, but to inspire fresh directions for industry. And that's also the power of design, like proposing these solutions and turning them into something experienceable and material. So I think it's actually an amazing time to be a designer, because so many things are changing, like from the way we move, the way we work. Everything is kind of in flux, and it's really a great time to be part of this in a meaningful and sensible way.
So your student is creating new yarn or something from bacteria. Is that what you mentioned? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So she's really early at her process, but I think what's great about it is that she manages to look at it from two different scales. So as I said, both the systemic scale, what's the impact of this, what impact could it have, and how would it change the way we consume. So a very regenerative perspective, right? So it's sustainability in a way, is about reducing the harm, but then if we really want to design a system where the whole planet can benefit, we have to change that scale and the dimension and the perspective. But then she manages to bring this down to actually what's the solution here, or what's an experiment we can conduct that is experienceable and tangible in this way.
So traditional design, I guess, used to be a lot easier to teach, right? How to sketch, how to model, how to make something out of wood, and now you have students engaging in chemistry or biology or deep tech. Like, how do you support their ambitions and curiosity?
Yeah, it's also been mentioned here, but it's really diversity. I think that's the key, because essentially I believe that like in our postgrad program, the students learn as much from each other as they learn from people in. But it's like it's the whole platform that you bring in a diverse group of teaching staff, that you bring in diverse students from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, that are. Yeah, in a way it's like organizing a dinner party. It's all about the mix to make it interesting, and that's also the way or I like to compose our cohort.
Dinner party planning, I like that. Sounds good. Maybe that's a good excuse to tell you a little bit about what's happening at the University of Tokyo with our initiative into the College of Design. So the topic really is about rethinking education in the future. How do we tackle a world where design is expanding in many different directions? So let me tell you about this new initiative. It's tentatively called the College of Design. We're not starting for a couple of years. There's a lot of planning and approvals to happen. But the main mission is not so much to start another college of design, because there are many great design colleges out there. But the vision, actually from the president, was how can we create graduates here at the University of Tokyo that can tackle important social issues and challenges of the future. Because there are many things that are happening now or will happen in the future that need the new generation's energy and solutions, from environmental challenges to social challenges, education, cultural preservation. There are so many things that are interesting and in need of consideration. And design, perhaps, is a method for helping to convert understanding into ideas and into actual deployable solutions. Hence why the mission is to start a College of Design. So the goal is to create a different type of graduate, as kind of visionary leader. There are many great graduates, of course, from the University of Tokyo, but a slightly different one that's trying to utilize basically understanding challenges and creating social transformation and positive change utilizing design. And the fundamentals of this are we want to create a course where you can study a broad range of topics, be it philosophy, machine learning, literature, chemistry, that the students can follow their own curiosity and build their knowledge deep and broad. And then design is the discipline that allows them to convert that understanding into real visions and real solutions. So we want to create a kind of change maker of the future that will actually deploy new ideas into society and help us create a much better world. And I think one of the most exciting elements of that is to work together as a university. So the university obviously has this incredible broad breadth of knowledge from engineering to literature and everything in between, law, medicine, and so on. So if we can tap into that knowledge and encourage a win-win situation where students are learning something and the other faculties are gaining something from that collaboration with design, we think we can build a really meaningful new institution here at the University of Tokyo. So we're at, I know, sorry, this is a bit of a sales pitch, but I have a question for you, which is how can you help us get this right? Because I feel that diversity is one of the key words here, and in two ways. One is we want a diverse access to knowledge. So designers who have this incredible diversity of understanding, that in itself is a challenge. And the second is, in order to create new ideas, you need lots of different and diverse people to bring different thinking and different experiences. And I know particularly in the UK and Europe, diversity in education is a very successfully active element of higher education. So yeah, have you got tips for us to try to achieve this grand vision? Maybe Vali, you could jump in. Sorry to land that one on you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful question. But before I answer, shall I just repeat what Chairman Che said yesterday? I would love to study this course. If I was just starting now, I would have loved to come and study this course because you're putting together the things that are very important for the future. And if I have any tips for that, I think the experience is, first of all, that this is needed, and we can see it in the numbers we got. I started 4 years ago with about 100 students, and we reached this year 1,800. So it's only 4 years later. So there is a need for that. And the need is not just numbers, because we, as I said before, we celebrate the fact that we have a high percentage of women in those courses, the fact that we have people from all kinds of economic backgrounds, ethnicity, and diversity in race and so on.
Sorry to jump in, just picking on the point about women, attracting women to a kind of technology or design-related courses. How have you been successful in that?
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. It's about how we design the curricula. It's actually about including things that women do care about, maybe. And I'm not going to stereotype women, but we do care about the planet, we care about the world, and we care about the person next to us. There is a lot of empathy. And if the curriculum is talking about issues like you are talking in the College of Design, you know, a more equitable society, a caring society, looking at ethics, looking at biases, then that's a language that will attract the right individuals, the diverse individuals. Also having a diverse staff is important, so we put a lot of emphasis in when we were recruiting staff to make sure that we reflect the diversity that we want to see in our students, also in our staff. And there was one more point that I wanted to say, and maybe we'll come back. So.
Sure. Shiho, you're making notes. You sound like you have perhaps
No,
something
I'm
to
learning a lot, so
Yeah.
I'm just making notes. But it's already very inspirational. I haven't been an educator for that long as compared to you both. But I'm thinking that when we think about how to make it more how can we unlearn what we learned from? That is the challenging in education, I think, because we tend to teach what we do know, and we try to memorize. So that's how most of the Japanese students has been educated, and they need to change today. You have to think with your own voice, but to come out of unmolding yourself, you have to unlearn what you learned from childhood, and that's very, very challenging. And this university, our College of Design, is to co-create between scientists and what we call science students and humanities students. We tend to separate, but it's try to break that boundaries and getting inspiration in each other, which it's happening already to me. I'm making a lot of notes. So yeah, I don't know how to make this, but
Yeah, the unlearning, I think, is a really good point. I think not only for attracting a different kind of student, perhaps, but I also think in the university itself is the College of Design needs to break its own boundaries of what design is and accept the fact that this is incredible wide knowledge, disciplinary knowledge around it that needs to be collaborative with. Design needs to reach out, and I think everyone else all know it's all the learning experience of what the new college can create in a beneficial way for the whole university. So unlearning the way that we've worked before, I think, is a really important element from the university's perspective as well as students themselves, perhaps.
And I think I remembered what I wanted to add, because I think it's absolutely true. We need to unlearn that artificial separation between art and humanities and science. That is artificial. I mean, in my own language, Greek, those two things have the same root, technologia, art and technology. We just artificially separated them in our educational systems, and that hasn't served our societies or the planet that well. So bringing them back together is very important. And the point about changing also, we changed the way that we also admit students to create the diversity. So it's not just exams, it's a whole portfolio of what the applicants have that admits them into our courses. And we teach what they don't know. So if they come with no maths, we will teach them quickly, or programming. So that's how we make a level play field for some students to unlearn, other students to learn fast, and all of us to benefit society. Thank you for reminding me this.
I think that the university has to be the place where the openness is the most important, so that you have a different way of thinking, different level of learning and culture, languages. I can imagine that University of Tokyo has so many variety already of students from all over the world. And today we are talking in English, right, already. So it's very unique in terms of like Japan. If outside Japan, Europe, this is already became normal that you have so many different backgrounds, ages, cultures. So.
Yes, it's actually, I forgot to mention, that is one of the really important goals of the new college, is to have a diverse intake. So, students from all over the world, from Japan, of course, but every other corner coming together, exchanging viewpoints, and that being a kind of melting pot of ideas, because you have so many different experiences and cultures. I think, yes, in a way, Europe has got used to, or European universities have got used to that kind of very diverse mix of students being involved. So
I think there's a long way to go for us as well. I mean, it's really about kind of the learning culture, not just the teaching culture, but the learning culture, both from teaching side, from student side, to grow and evolve and like create a course that is, or create a program that is set up to evolve, like they can change over time, reflecting the changing landscape of design, of our society, of our environment. And I mean, things like diversity or even creativity, innovation, you don't just get on a press of a button. It's you can create an environment where these things are likely to happen, to allow for these things to happen. But for me, it comes down to really a shift of thinking, of how we think about design education. And it's a shift from preparing students for the future to enabling them to shape their futures, and ties in nicely with the title of this forum, the shaping the future. And I think designers really have the tools to shape that, not on their own, but in collaboration and co-creation with other disciplines, with other people, with other perspectives.
In your program, how have you constructed it in a fundamentally new way? Like, what have you learned from your experiences or from observations of other educational institutes, or the way that design works, and how have you brought new elements to the program?
Yeah, so as I said, my background is industrial design, so I very much care about the material aspects of our environment, but then it's also about speculative thinking and critical approaches towards design. But I think these both are not enough. It's about including these questions, these speculative methods and the speculative thinking into our process to enrich it, and then to propose something that has transformative potential. So the way we structure our program is really, sorry to not add something new, but it's unlearning, and especially in the first year. So really opening up different perspectives, both critical, speculative one, innovation-based approaches, and very experimental one, and also the tools, like the skills, how we can communicate, how we can work through narrative methods, through object-based methods. Prototyping plays a hugely important role. I think that's all instrumental really in the first year, and then in the second year it goes into proposing your thesis project and then developing something that has a strong foundation but is also enriched by these different perspectives, if that makes sense.
Sure. I'm looking forward to seeing where your graduates go. And maybe to that point, when I think about the College of Design and where graduates will end up actually doing work or having impact, I imagine entirely new enterprises and ways of working. That kind of excites me. Startup culture and entrepreneurially driven students would be great. But of course, there's a whole world of different companies out there, and I'm interested from, like, Shiho, you work at a large corporation. Big corporations are also slow-moving devices, right?
That's right.
If we create College of Design graduates with sort of this radical new way of wanting to change the world, they need to work, they need money. How do you imagine them interfacing with the world of work that exists at the moment?
So when you work in a large group of people, as you just said, it's like a huge ship. So to turn, you have to have a lot of talk, the force to make the change. You need to get approval of approval. And you get tired. And then the time, the world is fast today. So you just started to talk about it. So the way how my ex-team was a small group of people, we used to call ourselves pirates. And we had the individuality. We don't listen manager, basically. We have to actually have the individuality and express why it's so matter today. And it's not about speed, it's about the importance. And you have to do it yourself, so making prototype, prove it, and change it, and listen to others. So that was the way how making, yeah.
So you have a very unique spot in your organization. Like, how can new graduates create the same magic that you've managed to create after you have an amazing ability and experience to do that?
I think that my experience at RCA, it was a small group of students. We were just 13 students. And I found that the teacher was also learning from us. So I had I could get feeling like what I'm saying or what I'm thinking, it's not about wrong or right. They're very interested and they are supporting. And that built my confidence, self-confidence. So that, when I went out of school, my self-confidence continued to grow. I mean, continued, not to be too much confidence. But yeah, I think that was the great experience at the RCA.
Confidence-building educational environment. Vali, anything to add on that?
Yeah, you asked a very important question, especially when applicants ask, where would I have a job after this? And I'll tell you what the big companies tell us, the ones that employ our graduates, so Google, IBM, Microsoft, to name just a few. They say to us that what they appreciate in our graduates is that they are T people. What they mean by that is that they have the depth in technology, but also they have a process of art and design to be able to connect across different disciplines. And I think in the College of Design is you give them the design and then the science that allows them to so you're creating Tokyo people, T people. In a way, that is actually what our world needs, because the problems we are facing are complex. We said that, we've heard it in many different ways. And T people, people that can have the depth, but can come and connect across different disciplines and work with teams is what we see that is valued.
Cool. Yep.
And that's how our graduates get jobs. And as you say, entrepreneurial is also important.
Yes, I hope there's a huge range of impact from the new college in the future, and maybe some collaborations with other institutes, of course. So from that, the tips I got was, of course, diversity, unlearning. So I've got to unpack their brains as they arrive, and everyone has to be a pirate, right? Okay. Thank you. So maybe as maybe in a kind of a slow, we've still got some time, but a wrap up. I'm also interested, moving away just from education, but back into the world of design and its own boundaries and its own limits. Where do you see design going next? And it could be something that we've already talked about and just needs to get better, or is there some action we should take to enable that to happen faster or more strongly? Or is there some territory that design has not yet been in? And maybe I'll kick off. I always have these two thoughts that, first of all, design needs to take itself more seriously. Like, I think designers genuinely love their job so much they're busy doing the work, as opposed to sitting back and thinking, what is the importance of this work? And I always remember when I was a student going to a lecture from a very famous designer who I will not name. That person showed many amazing projects and then took Q&A at the end. And at the end, one of the questions was, so you've designed so many things in your life, you're kind of at the pinnacle of your career. What's next? What do you want to do next? And I was excited at that moment, thinking, this is it. This is where we hear the grand philosophy of design, what's going to change the world, what design industry needs to do. And that designer said, I've never designed a video camera. I'd like to design a video camera. And it was like, is that all you've got after a whole career of doing amazing work, that you just want to design another product? And I think this is kind of illustrative of the problem of design. We need to take ourselves more seriously as an industry and in education, so that the power of design to influence the world through collaboration, through co-design, cannot do it alone, but it is an incredible way of visioning the future and deploying ideas. So maybe that's, I always think that's the action point we need to take. But do you guys have any action points or interesting areas to add to that?
If I can, I really love that story, because I think it highlights something really important, that you can teach skills, right? So that's quite easy by repetition and just practicing stuff. But teaching something like a mindset is a very different thing, like how to look at our world, at our problems, and all the challenges we have. And this is something I also haven't figured out, and will be a long process. But in a way, enabling students and everybody to develop a mindset and a mindfulness to create these meaningful and sensible solutions.
Do you think the mindset learning is all about the environment and activity? It's not so much a taught program, but and it comes to Shiho's point about the RCA culture creating confidence. That's not, you didn't do a class in confidence, you don't teach a lecture on mindset, but it's the ambience and the environment of the learning environment, perhaps.
Absolutely, and I think I also remember one of the first things when I studied in my master's. So what was said to me is that you will be confused in this program, and it's good to be confused, because that means you're trying to understand things, and that's a real important thing. Like, it's good to not know the answers. And I think one of the really core skills or abilities of future generations is ambiguity tolerance. So being tolerant or tolerating that discomfort when you don't know the answer, when there's no quick solution. And we've heard it yesterday in Alice's talk. There are more problems than we can fit on one sign. So we all have these challenges, and how can we tolerate that discomfort of not knowing not kind of pinning it down too quickly, but working with it, developing it, and then co-creating and opening up new perspectives to enrich that.
I like that. Ambiguity tolerance.
Yeah. And I think with that comes also this idea that we are not the experts. Actually being able to suspend that expertise for a minute, it sets a different space, which is a space of learning from each other, is what you mentioned as well, is like teachers in the RCA were learning also from us as students. And I believe that that is a very important mindset to set, as is collaboration. For me, collaboration is very important, the co-creation, but also collaboration across the planet, because the different cultures bring different challenges, insights, and I find working with Japan, with the collaborations we have, and very thankful for brokering some of this within the University of Tokyo and companies, they bring a lot of richness in the kind of solutions and the way we think about the world. So I believe in that type of collaboration is, if you like, it's the new frontier to break, the new boundary to break.
And I know you've gone from like 100 students to 1,800 students in the last few years, so you probably don't want to think of anything to add on to that. But if there could be something in the Creative Computing Institute or the University of the Arts generally, like is there anything that's missing you see in the horizons of design?
I think specific to the Creative Computing Institute, I would love to see the design element empowered even more. So there is a lot of scope for collaboration on that, I think. In terms of what I would like to see more generally is to also change the way that pure technology is done, so that this idea that we need the connection between design and science to solve problems better is propagated not just within our institutions, but actually out there with the other researchers that come from more technology backgrounds and science backgrounds. I think our impact will be a lot bigger, and we can create a world that is prosperous, is equitable, and uses technology and science to solve problems that are complex.
I look forward to it. Shiho, anything to add in terms of action points or gaps that you can observe?
I'm just hearing what you say. That comes to my mind, that how important to get out of your own comfort zone as a student, as a teacher, as a designer, and as also the member of society. And it's really difficult to define what is your comfort zone first. But it comes to when uncomfortable situation, then you suddenly see that, okay, why I'm uncomfortable? Why there's you see this is a problem. And that's where the design thinking way starting, right? So we recognize that uncomfort.
Celebrate the uncomfortable situation, I guess, or don't fear it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Be brave and
So maybe to that point, you mentioned earlier that in the 1960s there was a very famous meeting here in this very same building that was a kind of revolutionary discussion that let's hope a revolution, good and big change, and some dramatic things in the future, but hopefully without the trouble side of that particular historical incident. Thank you so much for your insights. I find it really inspirational. Even little snippets of conversation are like, embedded in my head, and hopefully you will see the future response in how we develop things. But thank you for joining us today and discussing the boundaries and the fusions and the frontiers of design. It's been inspirational, and I look forward to lots of future collaborations with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for helping us understand how design, when unbound, can expand its power and solve more problems around the world and create new change makers, and very excited about the new design college at UTokyo. Please give the panel another big hand.